Hey, what the hell's going on with you and your face? You got a good looking face there. What are you doing to it? You putting some creams and some salves and some lotion on your face so that you look like you're 15 when you're actually 106? How are you? My name is Nick Digilio. I post YouTube videos pretty much daily, and then I post them on my Patreon channel as well, where you get bonus material if you donate. So please donate. It helps out a lot, keeps the videos coming. It's a great channel, Patreon.com. It helps artists and musicians and people who want to tell stories and do things and share really cool stuff that they have in their head and in their hearts with you. But in order to do that, they need some help, and I'm one of those people. And I'm asking you for some help. So please donate today. Pick a tier, $3, $6, $25 a month, whatever you want to do. $3 a month, that's nothing. That's nothing. That's not even a gallon of gas. So please, $3 a month would help a lot. Keep the stories going, keep the videos coming, help me out with my podcast as well, which is a separate thing. The Nick D podcast every Tuesday and Friday, new episodes, radiomisfits.com. But anyway, patreon.com/Nick D Show, give now. Just a little warning, they're doing construction outside my apartment. And so you're gonna hear dee-doo, dee-doo, and stuff slamming. This is what happens when you live on a main street. I live on Irving Park Road in Chicago. That's a 4-lane street, a thoroughfare that has cars flying and buses and taxis and bicycles and motorcycles flying up and down it. I live right by a train stop, a Blue Line L stop. Right near the Kennedy, so I get to hear the expressway and the trains and the Blue Line and the buses and the drunks. And I have neighbors who live across the hall from me upstairs who are assholes. And they like to blast music till 4 o'clock in the morning and run around on the back porch like dickheads. So anyway, in other words, I live in a noisy little hut. It's obviously the Snake Plissken hut. But I live here and it's loud. So just like when you hear bee-doo, dee-doo, that means there's some machinery backing up outside. And that if you'd like to hear me do an imitation of it for an hour, because I hear it 15 hours a day. So I can do an imitation if you'd like, before they put me in the fucking loony bin. Anyway, you might hear some shit, is what I'm saying. Stupid neighbors, loud outside, you know, that kind of shit. Anyway, I'm Nick. How are you? Thanks for checking out my videos here and my YouTube channel and my patreon.com/Nick D Show. Donate now. Okay. So I just was looking some stuff up online about this website did a survey for people of movies that don't hold up. Now, we've all watched movies. I've done a video on this before where we watched movies like when we were kids and we loved it, and then we watch it as an adult and you're like, ooh. Boy, that movie sucked. There's a lot of them. There's a lot of movies that we watched when we were kids that were like, hey, that was fun. That was really cool. I loved it when I was a kid. And then you watch it when you're an adult and you're like, man, that was a piece of shit. I call that night hawking. When you go back and watch a movie that you once loved and then realize, oh my God, it's terrible. I call that's when you night hawk a movie. And the reason I call it night hawking is because that's what happened to me when I watched Nighthawks in my 30s after not watching it for maybe 15 to 20 years. When I was 16, the movie Nighthawks with Sylvester Stallone came out, Rutger Hauer, Billy D. Williams, and I loved it. I thought it was the greatest movie ever. My friends and I saw it at the Norwich like 27 times. When I had On TV and Spectrum and that subscription TV shit before cable came around, it was on like every other night. I watched it every night. I loved it. 16 years old, Nighthawks, masterpiece. Years later, I see it's on cable at like 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm very excited. I'm probably in my 30s at this point. And I'm like, yeah, man, Nighthawks, awesome. I'm a half hour into Nighthawks. I'm like, man, this movie is a piece of shit. And it is. Nighthawks is a piece of garbage. But I loved it when I was 16. So I went to this website where they actually asked some people movies that don't hold up. Now, the reason this popped into my head is because the other night on cable, I was watching a movie that I really, really liked a lot the first time I saw it. Had not seen it since. Now, this movie is only 2 years old. So it's not this whole, I was a kid when I saw it, my perspective was different, I was young, I didn't have really discerning taste, I didn't know what a good movie was from a bad movie, hence Nighthawks. But this is a movie that I thought was really terrific, like really, really strong and really good. Only a year and a half, 2 years ago. And I watched it on cable the other night, does not fucking hold up. If you liked it, don't watch it a second time. And that movie is Promising Young Woman. It's not good. I'm not really sure why I liked it as much as I did the first time I saw it. Carey Mulligan has been better in about, I don't know, 700 other movies. It's a pretty good performance, obviously an interesting idea, very provocative, very bold statement, very important message and topic that the movie is covering, but it ain't good. It ain't good. Maybe it's because I hadn't seen like first run movies in a while. Nobody was in theaters, and you had to pay like $900 to watch a movie, on your on demand, because nobody was going to movies, and movies were going straight to video on demand. And stuff like The Invisible Man, which is actually a good movie and still holds up, paying like $19 to see it, and all this other shit. Wonder Woman, all that stuff you remember. What the hell is that? Oh, that's interesting. That was from my breakfast. That was good. Anyway, so when it came out, I guess I was starving for entertainment, and was nominated for a bunch of Academy Awards and all that stuff. And then I watched it again the other night, and you know what? Promising Young Woman, it's not good. It's not a good movie. It's not as important movie as I thought it was. The performances aren't as good as I thought it was. Certainly not as provocative, and it's definitely not as smart and risky as it thinks it is. It's not a very good movie. So that's one of those movies that doesn't hold up. So if you really have great memories from last year or 2 years ago, seeing or watching Promising Young Woman with Carey Mulligan, don't watch it again. It doesn't hold up, because it's not a good movie. But that happens sometimes. Sometimes you see a movie and you go, oh man, I was wrong. So this website talked to about 20 different people. Movies that don't hold up. That's the topic. Maybe when you were younger you saw it and you loved it, and now you don't like it so much and you realize it's bad. But for different reasons. So here's some of the people who are picking out movies that they think don't hold up anymore. And if you want to leave your comments, please do leave them here on the YouTube channel, or leave them on the Patreon page after, of course, you donate. So here are some of the choices from the website. Here we go. All right. 16 Candles. I would wager to say that none of the John Hughes movies, none of them completely hold up. Breakfast Club I still think is the best thing he's ever done. There's still stuff in that movie that is cringe-worthy and not very good. But most of his stuff is shit. I really didn't love it before. But someone says 16 Candles. Jeff says, when it isn't horribly racist, it gets really rapey. Playing up the "we believe the drunk snobby girl deserves to get raped by someone she has already quite clearly rejected when she was sober" mindset. Absolutely true. It is a racist movie. It has a very weird sort of rapey sensibility to it. There are jokes that are questionable. Again, this is a movie that was made in 1984, so times were different, and everything is being reevaluated. Whether you agree with it or not, I don't with most of it. Fuck off. If a movie was made at a certain time period, keep that in mind when you watch it. Don't suddenly take all the values and all the woke shit that's happening now and apply it to a movie that was made in the 70s. That means you're an idiot. Anyway, but 16 Candles, there's shit in it that's unforgivable. Long Duck Dong is one of the most offensive, racist, stereotype characters ever in the history of movies. There are lots of really tasteless, stupid jokes that don't work. It's not a good movie. Molly Ringwald is a ray of sunshine among a pile of steaming, racist, rapey shit. So yes, Jeff, you're correct. 16 Candles does not hold up. Silence of the Lambs. Diana says, the anti-trans rant kind of kills what is otherwise a great movie. Hey, listen, you don't have to convince me about Silence of the Lambs. That's a movie that doesn't hold up for me upon first viewing, because it's a piece of shit, it's morally reprehensible, and it's garbage, as Walter Matthau would say about a plate of linguine. Because it's garbage. The Matrix. Roderick says that the movie doesn't quite make sense anymore in a society without landlines or payphones. Fuck you. The Matrix is great. All 4 of the movies are good. Blow me. Revenge of the Nerds. Oh, another rape scene. Merritt says that Lewis flat out rapes Betty, and I was in my 30s when I suddenly processed that. Yeah. I still think that Revenge of the Nerds, for 80% of it, is great and really, really funny. Has some memorable scenes. There are things in it that now would not hold up. It was a teen sex comedy from the 80s, and there were a lot of crazy, questionable shit that was done in those teen sex comedies of the 80s. And that whole scene with Lewis basically raping the girl is insane to watch now. It's fucking insane. So yeah, that's like I hosted a screening of Revenge of the Nerds, and Curtis Armstrong, who plays Booger, who was Miles in Risky Business. He was my guest live, and we did a Q&A afterwards. Yeah, it was very, and he acknowledges it. There's some real uncomfortable shit in Revenge of the Nerds. I still think it's great, and I have great memories watching it back in 1984 when it came out. And I still think it's a very funny movie, but man, there are sections of it. Ugh. Shallow Hal, someone says. Jennifer says, the whole movie is just cringe-worthy now. What do you mean now? Now you're realizing Shallow Hal is cringe-worthy? The movie is about a superficial man who is given the ability to see people's inner beauty only. So he unwillingly falls for an overweight woman, and there are fat jokes galore. Yeah, it's Jack Black, Gwyneth Paltrow. It's a terrible movie. I don't know how that doesn't hold up, because it holds up. It was shit then, and it's shit now. How about this one? Someone says Xanadu. Jackie says, went back to the movie 7 times to see it again and again and again when it first came out, and I wasn't even stoned. Then I watched it now, and it stinks. Xanadu is an awful movie. This is the one with Olivia Newton-John, Gene Kelly, and Michael Beck, who played Swan in The Warriors. This was like his follow-up to The Warriors, where he's roller skating and disco dancing with Gene Kelly and, you know, to the music of ELO. A very unswan-like thing to do. Xanadu is a terrible movie. It's a terrible movie, but it was never not a terrible movie. It's also a very entertaining piece of shit. It's one of those movies that's so bad it's good. Short Circuit. Loved that movie as a kid, David says, but Fisher Stevens in brownface is kind of cringy. You think so? Fisher Stevens plays a Middle Eastern character, an Indian character in the film. And instead of hiring an actor of that descent, they hired Fisher Stevens, who was about as white a person as you can possibly get, and they darkened him up, and he did the accent. He did the Apu accent. It's really bad. And the movie's bad anyway, but a lot of people loved that movie when they were kids and then watched it as an adult and went, what's going on here with this character? It's really cringeworthy and offensive. But I always thought Short Circuit was a piece of shit anyway, so. Garden State. Mike says, when I was in my 20s, Garden State really spoke to me. When I watched it again in my 30s, I saw it for what it was, formulaic, pretentious, and indie crap. I wouldn't go so far. When Garden State came out, I was just about to turn 40. Okay? My friend Eric Childress, who reviews movies with me on the Nick D podcast, which you should subscribe to right now, radiomisfits.com. Garden State came out that year, and he was turning 30. So it was like this big movie for him. Like Garden State was, for Eric Childress, was this big, seminal, important movie that spoke to him generationally and even more. Like it was big. For me, Garden State didn't do that. For me that year, Sideways came out. And Sideways was the movie that captured me, that was generational for me, that spoke to me deeply, and still to this day is one of the most important, significant movies I've ever seen in my life, featuring a main character that is more like me than any other movie character ever. Miles in that movie, Paul Giamatti's character in Sideways. I've never felt and identified more with a character ever, although I would never steal from my mother. But outside of that, I would have done, and will do, or have done everything that character did. So that was the big difference in age, that we realized when those movies came out, that Eric and I realized. His big movie that spoke to him that year was Garden State. Mine was Sideways. Now, having said that, I think Garden State is okay. It's a little twee. I think Zach Braff is a douchebag and needs a slap across the mug. He's not made a good movie since. And yes, I can understand people thinking that it is pretentious and indie crap, as you will. There are certain elements of it that don't hold up today. But I still like Garden State. I don't think it's an important movie. It did not change my life. It did not speak to me on any level except for the fact that I liked the cast and I thought it was entertaining. Natalie Portman rules. Peter Sarsgaard is in it. For God's sake, Peter Sarsgaard is in it. So, but yeah, this person realized that Garden State did not hold up. And I can see that. I can totally see that. Mac and Me. Really? Mac and Me was good? You don't think it holds up? Annette says, I saw it in the theater when it came out. I watched it again as an adult, and I realized it was like watching a 2-hour McDonald's commercial, and it's a poor man's E.T. It really took you that long to figure that out? Annette, it took you a long time to realize that Mac and Me is a bad movie? Wow. Lady Hawk. James says, to be fair, it's more about the soundtrack not holding up. The synth music doesn't work with the medieval time period. I haven't seen Lady Hawk since it came out. I remember liking it. Michelle Pfeiffer, who's one of my favorite women in the world, actresses of all time to ever live. I love the Michelle Pfeiffers very much. Rutger Hauer. I believe Matthew Broderick is in that movie. So I remember, no, I've seen it on cable, but I haven't seen it probably over 30 years. So I can't speak to that. But Lady Hawk does not hold up because of the soundtrack. Let's see. The Gods Must Be Crazy. Tony says, I watched it in the theater and I thought it was the funniest thing I'd ever seen. I watched it again some years later and I was like, what the fuck is this? The Gods Must Be Crazy is still funny. That's the one where where they find the Coke bottle and they think it's from space. I still think The Gods Must Be Crazy is funny. Now, I haven't seen it in many, many years, but I saw it as an adult. Well, I was an adult when it came out, but I saw it as an older adult, years between viewings, and I still think The Gods Must Be Crazy is funny. I like it. Let's see, Napoleon Dynamite. Well, here's another one that, boy, you people are jumping on the bandwagon like Silence of the Lambs and 16 Candles and stuff. These are movies that I knew were shit when they came out. Napoleon Dynamite is a piece of shit. Terry says, funniest movie ever when I was in college. I watched it a year or so ago. Didn't laugh once. Oddly enough, though, I still randomly quote it. Never been funny, never will be funny. Don't understand why people like Napoleon Dynamite. When it came out, people doing imitations and talking about it and quoting it all the time was almost as annoying as when fucking Borat was out and every douchebag, every white boy douchebag in the world was doing their Borat imitation. My wife! Yeah, Napoleon Dynamite is crap. It's always been crap. Someday, everybody who likes it will realize that, like this person did. Empire Records. Matt says, used to be, yeah, stick to it, stick it to the man kind of stuff. Now it's, how is this store still in business when this staff is constantly in the back room? It's constantly in the back room. Okay, that's legit. That's legit. If you're looking at it from a standpoint of, of like employee-boss relations and how does this business stay afloat, yeah, that's absolutely legitimate. A lot of people really diss on Empire Records. You know what? A lot of people diss the movie a lot. They love the soundtrack. I like Empire Records. Yes, you could nitpick this movie to death, and there are things in it that are cringe-worthy and a little questionable, but I don't care. I still like Empire Records. I know I get a lot of shit for liking it, and yes, I can understand why people hate it, why it doesn't hold up, why it's cringe-worthy now. And all of the stuff about how this business is still afloat, that all is legit. But I don't care. I still like Empire Records. When it pops on cable, I watch it. I love the cast. I like the soundtrack. I like the movie. Drop Dead Fred. Jessica says, I loved Drop Dead Fred when I was a kid. I watched it back with my kids, and I found myself somewhat empathizing with the mother. Yeah, that happens, right? Like when you grow up and you watch a movie that you thought like rebellious teens, and then you watch it and you go, man, the parents ought to beat the shit out of these kids. But Drop Dead Fred, by the way, except for a cameo by my friend Steve Cochran, is a terrible movie. It's always been a terrible movie. Braveheart. Oh, here's someone who doesn't like Braveheart. Chris says it was a huge hit back then. It was so cheesy and hard to watch. It's embarrassing. It's really, really very bad. No, it isn't. Braveheart's a terrific movie. Historically, unbelievably and ridiculously inaccurate. Made by a racist, psychopath, homophobe, Jew hater. Yes. But it's still Braveheart. You know, I don't know if it should have won Best Picture. I don't know if he should have won Best Director. There's some amazing shit in Braveheart. There's some amazing filmmaking in that movie. I still think Braveheart holds up. The star and director of it does not hold up. He should be holding up in prison. The Blind Side, Chris says, was this ever good? The white people feel the problems of the black guy through the white people movie, which of course is, you know, the way that most movies about black people are made. The protagonist is always a white person. Anyway, Sandra Bullock adopts a black kid, a football player. The Blind Side. I loved good corny sports movies, Chris says, but The Blind Side hit all the right emotional beats when I was 17. But 12 years later, I find it very pandering and patronizing. Really? Now you do? An Oscar-begging, by-the-books, made-for-TV movie that somehow made it to the big screen. See what happens when you're 12, when you're 17, you don't know what the fuck's happening? Like you see The Blind Side when you're 17, you think it's good? I was 16 when I saw Night Ox. I thought it was good. Sometimes when you know, years later, you look back and go, what the fuck? Like this guy actually liked The Blind Side. He actually liked The Blind Side. Think about that for a moment. This person actually liked Sandra Bullock and The Blind Side. Ah, man, you're stupid when you're young. Avatar. Boy, this list is filled with a lot of movies that I knew sucked the first time I saw them. I didn't have to go back and see that they didn't hold up. They didn't hold up the first time I watched them. Avatar is one of the stupidest fucking movies ever made. a script that I think was written by drunk monkeys, because not even sober monkeys could write a dumber script than this. Avatar, it's a piece of shit. And all the people who are like waiting for the 7 sequels that took 15 years for Cameron to make, you're idiots. If you are actually anticipating and looking forward to the new Avatar movies, you're a moron. Enjoy spending $20 on 3 hours of shit. Adam says, it seems so revolutionary when it first came out. I saw it several times, but now it's just kind of bland. I watched it not too long ago and I can barely remember a single thing about it. And the wow factor of the effects no longer holds up because good effects are a dime a dozen these days. Yeah. Avatar's a piece of shit. It's shit. And for the biggest movie ever made, like it made like $80 trillion, no one ever talks about it. No one ever quotes it. No one ever remembers the characters' names or nobody remembers anything about Avatar. You know why? Because it sucks. It's always sucked. It doesn't hold up because it never held up. American Beauty. Here's a good one. Nina says, the award-winning movie starring Kevin Spacey pining after an underage person. It definitely doesn't hold up because it feels like, especially when you watched it as an underage girl, that those creepy guys are cool if they assault you and you're going to be guilty. Like you're going to be guilty. There are a lot of things about American Beauty that don't work. There's another movie that I didn't like from the beginning. People coming to terms with movies not holding up. I didn't like American Beauty the first time I saw it. American Beauty's a piece of shit. It's a pretentious, pompous piece of shit. Guy spends 15 minutes talking about a fucking plastic bag floating around in the wind. Get the fuck out of here. Kevin Spacey wins an Oscar for it. It's a terrible movie. American Beauty, terrible, pretentious, awful, fucking phony movie. And then finally, someone says Ace Ventura Pet Detective doesn't hold up. Tanya says, classic film, one of my childhood favorites. It only gets overly transphobic at the very end. Yes, you know, the whole transphobic thing with the Sean Young character is pretty offensive, but 90% of Ace Ventura Pet Detective is offensive. I love Ace Ventura Pet Detective. No apology, none whatsoever. You think I'm an asshole because I like Ace Ventura Pet Detective? Fine, I'm an asshole. I'm an asshole for many, many reasons, and I'm sure you think that already too. You're an asshole for a ton of reasons, Nick. Yes, I know that. You have a list, and I don't care. But Ace Ventura Pet Detective, fucking hilarious. Still funny. I've seen it 80 billion times. When my buddy Scott Oken and I lived together, it had just come on cable. We watched it 8,000 times a night. Ace Ventura is still hilarious. Politically incorrect? Yes. A little cringe-worthy now, years and years later? Yes, of course. Everything is. You can't say anything now without somebody getting offended. Ace Ventura Pet Detective, according to this person, doesn't hold up. Well, I totally disagree. Ace Ventura Pet Detective is a goddamn classic. So, anyway. All right, that was from a website where they polled like 20 people, movies that don't hold up now, but you liked them before. Leave your thoughts here. What movies don't hold up anymore, but you once liked them? Leave them here on my YouTube channel as well, and patreon.com/NickDShow. Donate today. Pick a tier, donate. It helps a lot. I would really appreciate it, and it would mean a lot. So seriously, do it right now. Patreon.com/NickDShow. $3 a month ain't gonna kill you. All right, what movies did you think not hold up? Yeah, I learned English good